Hi all, thanks for joining us for the webinar this evening. We're going to be focusing on estates and facilities careers. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping, brief run through of what to expect today, and then we'll crack on with the interactive session and also your interviews as well. Okie doke. So in terms of housekeeping, we're asking the attendees to keep your cameras and microphones off unless you're speaking or involved in that way, just to help us with the bandwidth and with the recording. It is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch back at your leisure at any point, and it'll be available on the City Region Careers Hub YouTube channel. There should be a chat box for you. Depending on your Zoom setup, that's either going to be the top or the side or the bottom of your screen. It looks just like a little speech bubble. You can pop any of your questions, comments, answers to the quiz, or any queries you're having in terms of the webinar just in there. If you don't want to ask your questions like to everybody, feeling a little bit shy, you can on the drop down in the chat that says everyone, you can change to send it direct to myself or to Leslie Ann, and we'll be happy to ask it on your behalf. This is briefly what we're going to do today. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Leslie Ann in a second for the interactive session. Then we'll go to the interviews. Please pop your questions in throughout all of the interviews. You don't need to wait till the end to the Q&A, pop them all in. And then at the end, we'll do a quick recap on what the next steps will be with this webinar, what else you can expect from us, and we'll kind of go from there. Obviously, we've got students joining us from across the Northwest today, Cumbria, all the way down to Cheshire. So although it's Northwest wide and you'll hear from different people across the Northwest, you can get very local support in terms of your options, the support that's available, courses in your region, via your local UniConnect partnerships. You can see the partnerships on the screen now. And you will have been invited to a Google Classroom where you'll get all the contact details for those as well. So that is it for my little bit of intro. So I will stop screen sharing and hand over to Leslie Ann for her quiz.
Hello everyone. Right, I'm just going to share my screen so I can get our interactive content up. Let's make sure I share my slide. Okay, one moment. Right, you should be able to see. Can everyone see that PowerPoint full screen? Fantastic, thank you, Sarah. Right, okay. So for anyone who hasn't been to Creating Careers, we always set pre-work to ensure that you are as prepared as possible for this live webinar. Now, we want you to have feedback on that pre-work. So we start off the live session with a pre-work quiz to explore the topics that we set you and just to warm you up ready for today's session. So get involved, it helps everyone. No one's keeping score, and it is just to help all of our learning, all of our understanding to get the most out of today's session. So please get involved. The more everyone puts in, the more we get out of it and the more enjoyable. Right. Okay, so on to our starter. Right, so odd one out. A Zoom poll is now going to pop up, and I want you to tell me which profession is the odd one out, and use the chat to tell me why. Okay, so is it procurement, housekeeping, gardening? Which of those three professions would you say is the odd one out? And tell me why in the chat. I'm sure there's all kinds of logic of why you could choose one to be the odd one out. Why do you think I would choose one of them to be the odd one out? Answer and tell me in the chat.
Pretty even at the moment on the poll, nearly even split. Procurement's just gone ahead a little bit,
Okay.
but quite a lot of people have opted for gardening and housekeeping as well.
Okay, so we've got a split. So is anyone on the chat going to tell me why they've chosen what they've chosen? We've got Ruth there. Thank you for your contribution there. Ruth said procurement is office based and you think the other two aren't. Fantastic, good logic. Anyone else got anything they want to share? Come on, you're all voted. One more person can contribute. Put that in the chat. Why did you choose the answer that you chose? Even if it's a guess, tell me. It's nice to just hear from you. Okay, Leon's asked what housekeeping is. Wonderful. Well, we will come on to that. We've got some experts who can talk about housekeeping. And I tell you what, that'll lead us nicely onto our next section of this session. So the odd one out in my mind was A, procurement. And the reason behind that is because this isn't a job role within estates and facilities, which is the focus of today's webinar. Okay, so now in your pre-work, you were asked to explore roles within estates and facilities. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of what it is. So estates and facility staff look after NHS buildings and the grounds around them, so they are safe and pleasant environment for staff and patients. Now procurement and the odd one out, that's all about finance and money and that kind of section. So it is not a job role within estates and facilities. So if you're working in estates and facilities, you also make sure that goods and patients are where they need to be, so care is received at the right time and at the right place. So I'm going to give you some examples of careers within estates and facilities. Now, you were given all the links to research them yourself and some tasks around that. So, for example, facilities, right? Catering, chef, domestic services, linen services, housekeeping. Now, domestic services, you may think, well, what does that mean? That's about staff who make sure the hospitals are clean, comfortable places. They prepare, serve foods for patients and staff. So it's all about the upkeep of the environment. So if you're thinking about estates and facilities, it's all about the upkeep of the environment that healthcare setting is in, making sure it's fit for purpose and it's nice for staff and for patients. Okay, so looking onto estates, think about estate as an environment, as a place, isn't it? You might say someone's got a grand estate, they live on a grand estate. That's the environment that they're in. Okay, so you might have carpenters and joiners, making sure all the wood works as it should be. You've got electricians, painters, decorators, plumbers, tilers, bricklayers, window cleaners, gardeners, caretakers, right? So you can see that these roles in estate facilities are really varied. Some are outside roles, some are indoor roles, and some, maybe like the caretaker, can be outdoor and indoor. So if you've got any questions, so for example, when Leon asked about housekeeping, when our volunteers come on later, you will be able to ask them exactly anything you're curious about, any of those job roles, any questions. So keep them in your head, and I want you to save them for the volunteer who will be able to tell you more. Okay. So now I've given a quick overview of the different job roles within estates and facilities. Now, what I really want to focus on in this quiz is why work for the NHS or in healthcare. Now, this was something I asked you to look at in your pre-work. Now, within estates and facilities, these roles are what we call non-clinical. This again was explained in your pre-work. Now, this means roles that aren't involved in directly treating patients, right? And if you think about those lists of roles that I've just mentioned, chef, electrician, gardener, they're all roles that you could actually do in other organisations other than NHS, other than healthcare settings. So I want you to think about really, well, why would you choose to do that role within the NHS or within healthcare? This is something that I think will save a question for our volunteers who come on later, to ask them why they chose the NHS or healthcare in a job they could do in another field, sector, employer. So I really want you to think, when you're applying for a job, it isn't just about the job that you want to do, but it's also about the employer who you want to work for, what sector you want to work in. Is that kind of employer you would like to work for? So when you see a job advertisement, what kinds of things do you think you should look for in an employer? Because they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. Are they going to be a good fit for you? So I want you to think and put some ideas in the chat. When you see that job description, what kinds of things, what kinds of benefits or background to an employer would you look for to attract you to apply for that job? Okay, so open the chat up, have a think. Okay, so Sharon, fantastic. We've got training. Training is definitely one. You want to work somewhere where you think that they'll invest their time in you to make sure you are the best employee possible. So they'll improve your skills throughout your time there. So training is definitely one. If you look at a job description and they say, if you come and work for us, we'll make sure you're trained up to the maximum and beyond this role, definitely appeal to you. What else do you look for in a job? what's the first thing everyone looks for? Oh, Leon, I like that. Similar values to you. So values is about your belief of how you should behave in your everyday life or in your job. So if a company like the NHS has values that you share that you think are how you should behave, that would really appeal to you and how you want to work for them. And we'll come back to NHS values in a moment. Anything else? So an organisation that makes a difference and helps people, absolutely. So you want to work for someone who you think what they're doing is worthwhile, and therefore what you're doing is worthwhile. It helps people, helps the community. Claire, brilliant. Variety. Someone wants variety in their job, don't they? You don't want, maybe you want to be challenged and doing different things. So you look for an employer who can give you them kinds of things. Right, so thank you very much for your contributions on that. I'll just give you a little bit of an overview of other things that I had a little bit of a think about of what you're looking for in an employer, right? So the first thing you're going to look for if someone's having a job advertisement is pay. Is there a fair pay scale? Are you going to be able to be paid a similar amount in this organisation as you are in other organisations? Now, please don't think that's the main thing you should look for. It is very important, we can't deny that, but it is not everything. Okay? Work-life balance, all kinds of things, happiness, having a brilliant team, that is so important. So pay is something to think about. It's not the be-all and end-all. Next one is pension. I mean, some of you at your age probably wouldn't have even considered pension. If you're looking for an employer, you want to think, do they offer a good pension? So for when I'm retired, I can go on that trip around the world, I'll have a lovely big pension. So think about that when you're looking for an employer. The working week, okay? What are the hours like? Is it Monday to Friday? Can you do longer days so you've got a shorter week? That's really going to appeal to you when you're looking for what the employer offers. Flexible working as well. Are you able to, like, maybe if you're if you're older in the future, if any of you have children, you may think you need to be more flexible in your hours so you can sort out childcare. That's always really important. So when you're thinking about these non-clinical roles and they're thinking, why should I work with the NHS? These are all the things that those people are looking at. Holidays, absolutely the best part of any job when you get your good holidays. Does the institution offer decent holiday allowance? It's not the same as when you're in school, so you have to make sure you get a good holiday allowance. And career progression, and that links onto what Sharon said about training, making sure the come and with that personal development. Are there opportunities within the future to progress your career, move on to different jobs within that organisation, and are they going to invest in your personal development to help make sure that you get there? And Leon, you've said something brilliant there, sick pay. And Ruth, you'd already preempted me by saying progression and promotion. Absolutely brilliant. So all of those things there are things that people will look for in an employer when they apply for a job, and may persuade you that healthcare and the NHS is for you. There's another element you're going to look at, and I'm going to show you it in a moment in a video, right? So just hope it loads. I'm going to show you a video now to explain why I think anyone would want to work in the NHS and healthcare in a more powerful way that I think anyone could do with words, okay? So we've thought about all those benefits such as pay and pension, but there's other reasons, as Ruth mentioned earlier on in the chat. It's about having an organisation that you believe in and that they share values and provide a service that you believe in and think is worthwhile and meaningful. So I'm going to show you this video that can explain that in a way that I can't really, and I have to say it is emotional, so get your hankies ready.
God knows what is hiding in those weak and drunken hearts. Guess he kissed the girls and made them cry, those hard-faced queens of misadventure. God knows what is hiding in those weak and sunken lines, fiery thrones of muted angels, giving love but getting nothing back. Oh, people, help the people, and if you're homesick, give me your hand and I'll hold it. People, help the people, nothing will drag you down. Oh, and if I had to bring, oh, and if I had to bring, I'd be cold as a stone and rich as a fool. It turned all those good hearts away. God knows what is hiding in this world of little consequence, behind the tears, inside the lies, 1,000 slowly dying sunsets. God knows what is hiding in those weak and drunken hearts. Guess the loneliness came knocking. No one needs to be alone or singing. People, help the people, and if you're homesick, give me your hand and I'll hold it. People, help the people, nothing will drag you down. Oh, and if I had to bring, oh, and if I had to bring, I'd be cold as a stone and rich as the fool. It turned all those good hearts away. People, help the people, and if you're homesick, give me your hand and I'll hold it. People, help the people, nothing will drag you down. Oh, and if I had to break, oh, and if I had to break, I'd be cold as a stone and rich as a fool. That turned all those good hearts away.
Right, I have to say that video gets me every time. I've seen it so many times and every time it gets me, because when watching that video, the messages it's helping everyone in their lives from the moment they're born to the moment they reach, obviously the end of their life. And you can see that cycle carries on at the very end when they see the newborn baby. So if that doesn't tell you why anyone would want to work for the NHS or in healthcare, I don't know what would. So now we've established that what an amazing employer the NHS is and what a great sector healthcare is and social care, I need to tell you about the NHS values. So the NHS recruits using values-based recruitment. So you need to demonstrate in any applications to university or for the actual job itself or any apprenticeships you apply for, that you in your everyday life and work experience can demonstrate and share the 6 values of the NHS. Now, values, like I said earlier, are beliefs of how you think you should be. So you can see the 6 values on the screen: working together, respect and dignity, everyone counts, commitment to quality of care, compassion and improving lives. Now, if you go to slide 3 of your pre-work, there is a challenge there to help you to get to know the 6 values. Now, you might not have clinical experience to show you demonstrated these values in a healthcare setting because you still be in a school setting, but you can transfer your experiences from your school life and your home life. So you can show in your school or your home life how you show people respect and dignity, how you've shown compassion, how you've worked together with people. So we've done work in the past to help students transfer that experience. But what I will do is I will put a link in the chat to that video recording of that session we did. Go to slide 3 of your pre-work. You'll find a challenge there to help you get to know the NHS values, and there is another way we can support. So very quickly, because I know my time is almost up, at Creating Careers, we offer one-to-one mentoring to support your pathway into a career within health and social care. So this is a competitive industry and we want to help you get ahead of the crowd. So whether that's looking at those values and how to demonstrate them, whether you want more information about resources, help with applications, or just information on different occupations, we want you to take up this amazing offer and get you ahead of the crowd. The beauty of mentoring is that you can set the agenda, we can talk about what you want to talk about, and we can do it over email or however you feel comfortable. You've got nothing to lose, even if you aren't sure. So you can see the Zoom poll has come up. I want you to tell me how interested you are in this. Are you A, yes, you're going to do it. B, you're not sure. C, no, you're not interested at all. Tell me your feelings and thoughts on the Zoom poll. And if anyone's answering A or B, that means you should be getting involved, in touch with us, because even if you are not sure, you can just reach out and we can let you know a little bit more. So I will put an email address in the chat for you to get in touch with more information. So Sarah, we got the results of the Zoom?
We've got a couple of not sures, and I think quite a few people are still considering their answer.
Okay, well, all you not sures, get an email into you and we can talk to you about. You can tell us what you're not sure about, what you are sure about, and we can help you. No pressure, you can only benefit. So that is the end of today's pre-work warm-up, and we'll hand you over now to our wonderful volunteers and we can ask them why they're interested in working with the NHS.
Lucy, if you could unmic.
Hello.
There you are.
Good afternoon. Hello. I'm Lucy Rowe, and I work for NHS England, and I actually work in estates and facilities. And I'm here to interview, I believe it's Tim first.
Hi, yeah.
Hi, Tim. Hi. So you let me work in estates and facilities. Nice to see you. I think we've spoken before.
Yeah.
But I'm here to ask you some questions specifically about your role as a frontline kind of on the ground person working in estates and facilities, if that's okay. So would you mind just telling us about your job and what it entails and the title of it?
Okay, so my title is Facilities Manager for East Lancashire Hospitals. I'm primarily the catering lead. We have 5 hospitals with over 1,200 patients, and we serve over 25,000 meals a week to patients and staff, all freshly cooked.
That is a huge number, and I guess they have to be very nourishing meals as well, to make sure that we put people on the right track after any kind of time with us in hospital.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about the pathway in your career, could you tell us a little bit about that, where it began and that journey?
Yeah, so I left school and went to catering college. And I studied at Catering College at City and Guilds, old qualifications, different than they are now, but it was a qualification which was food and beverage, food and beverage 1, which was 707, and then also 706, which is food preparation and cooking. And then I left catering college and went to join the Royal Air Force, where I did further catering qualifications there and spent a number of years in the RAF, working in the mess, looking after officers and sergeants. And I spent some time working for the royal family on Queen's Flight, doing royal functions around Great Britain at different RAF bases. And then after I left the RAF, I then went to work in different contract catering, so working in business and industry and having my own restaurants for 10 years before ending at East Lancashire in 2015.
Wow, that is some journey and some history with it, lots of experience. And in terms of the qualifications, do you still do learning? Do you still take those in your life now and in your role?
Yes, I mean, you know, the cliches that every day is a learning day, but it is true. It's important that you can have continual personal development and always looking for something else to do. So lots of different in-house qualifications as well, and then some bespoke ones, industry-related qualifications, particularly looking around nutrition and diet and dietary requirements, and plant-based, which is one of the new things that we're looking at very big in the NHS now.
I believe so, and making the right sustainable choices and local food very important to us in estates to get our carbon down. I do know that. So what does the typical day look for you? Does it include all those things?
Yeah, I mean, a typical day, I start pretty early in the morning. That's my choice more than anything else. But I'll get in, do some email work, check everything that's come overnight, and from the end of the day yesterday, looking at budget planning. I have personal responsibility for over 120 staff, so there's lots of personnel issues that happen on a regular basis. So there's always something that's come up from somebody who is sick, and we need to look at how we find cover for different areas. We are seen as a flagship catering department in the country. We're on one of the NHS exemplar sites. So we do get a lot of requests for visits and some press requests as well. And then working with new menu ideas with chefs, looking at how we're going to ensure that we move towards our net zero targets, and looking at different kind of ways that we can be different. We are the only hospital in the country that serves venison and wild boar, and that's something that I know the NHS is looking at pushing furthermore. And then I have lots of meetings with clinical colleagues on daily and weekly basis, ensuring that we are meeting what the patient requires. I mean, at the end of the day, everything is about putting the patient first, all the time, every time.
It is, and you know, it's so fantastic that the estates and the facility staff are in a big part in that, and really part of that clinical pathway. So if you could give any advice to a student interested in your area of work, what would it be?
I think the first thing I would say is be aware of industry trends. I think that's really important. Make certain that you are prepared to learn, and don't be afraid of change. I think if you want to work in the NHS, the number one thing you have to be aware of is that change comes at a very fast pace and week on week. The last 2 years has taught us anything, is that we have to change and we have to adapt at a moment. So no day is the same. I know that is a cliche, but it really is like that. And if you can't be afraid of change. You have to embrace change. and look forward to doing something different every day.
So I'm guessing the change and the difference is one of the best parts of the job, or is there anything else? And alongside that, the worst bits, maybe?
I think they both have the same part in, and that's patient experience. So the best part of the job is when a patient, you get fantastic feedback from patients or from nursing staff about patients. And then also the worst part is when a patient has a bad experience, whether that be down to the fact that they didn't get the right meal, or they weren't happy with the meal they got, or whether that can be part of they felt that everything was dirty, or they didn't get the right linen change. So it's all about patient experience, and I think that's the difference between doing this job in the private sector, in hotels or restaurants, as to working in the NHS. The difference you make to a patient every single day is incredible. You are literally, and I'm not a big word user of the word, actually, but you are literally helping save patients' lives on a daily basis, and that is so important. You can't get a better feeling of that. I worked in the hospitality industry all my life in various different guises. Never have I ever had a job where I know that at the end of the week I've made an impact on somebody's life.
Fabulous. I want to kind of end it there because that's such a powerful statement. There is one last question, and I think it's relevant for the students who are listening. Is there anything that you particularly learn in school that maybe has carried you through, or you still use today?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things which the students won't use. So I can do long division and count without a calculator. So that is something that I can still do. I can still recite my times table. But I think the thing from school is and college and university is the thirst for knowledge, wanting to learn, and ensuring that every day you're doing something that is going to benefit what the environment is requiring. And I think from Mike, it's also planning work and being organized. I think that is something which school and college gives you. It helps you organize, particularly around how you do your days. And I have a to-do list which I do every single day. At the end of the day, I then write my to-do list for tomorrow, and sometimes there'll be an item on there which I know doesn't need doing for 5 months, but it's there, so I'm organized and planning ahead. So the knowledge of planning from school, I think, is really important.
Those are really strong skills that carry you through. So I just want to say thank you so much. I've learned quite a bit today in just them 5 minutes, so thank you so much, Tim. That's it from me. And I do believe I'm now going to speak to my second interviewee, which is Larry from Estates.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Larry. Lovely to meet you. Could you tell us a little bit about your job title and where you work, please?
Yeah, so I'm Operational Estates Manager for East Lancashire Hospitals NHS Trust. So my job involves being responsible for the running and maintenance of 5 hospitals that we have within our trust, and managing a team of 55 people. Now, that 55 people include a maintenance help desk who take all the calls, etc. We have estates officers, project managers, maintenance supervisors, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, plumbers, joiners, builders, maintenance assistants, gardeners, you name it, we've got it. So we can pretty much do everything. But we're also backed up by an awful lot of external specialist subcontractors, because hospitals are very, very complicated buildings to operate. So we couldn't operate without a lot of backup from external companies as well. So
yeah, and I think that was a really strong point about the engineering side, that it is a big part of running an NHS estate, and like you say, it's such a large estate. We own the most buildings out of any probably employer in the country, so there's so much to do on that site, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So yeah. and you've just illustrated that and the range of skills that we need. So
Yeah.
just thinking about your job personally and your career, can you just sort of take us through your pathway, please?
Yeah, I started as an apprentice in the estates department at age 16 years old. So I came down the apprenticeship route. So I did an apprenticeship in joinery and then building. And then I took that 4-year technical apprenticeship on day release while working for the NHS, and got City and Guilds accredited qualifications, which are sort of equivalent to NVQ level 4 nowadays. I then left the NHS when I was in my early 20s, and I went out working in the private sector for lots of big construction companies like Balfour Beatty's, people like that, working on construction sites, and also worked in local authority, working for district councils, that kind of thing. I then did quite a bit of in-house management training and became a maintenance supervisor. And then later in my career did a degree in construction management, which allowed me to progress into estates management. And of course, once you get into estates management, there's then an awful lot of work-based training that you needed to be able to manage specialist services. So within the NHS, we do a lot of technical training related to some of the things that we do that nobody else does. So we go on what they call authorised persons training, which is for things like low voltage and high voltage electrical systems, lifts, water safety, medical gases, confined spaces, all that kind of thing. And it's constantly updating your training, keeping up to date with the latest regulations, etc.
And I think that's one of the things that we would welcome as well in the NHS is you can we call them boomerangs. People do tend to boomerang from private sector to public sector, but a lot of people tend to come home back to the NHS because we get that job satisfaction. Yeah. So that's definitely something for young people to know about. It doesn't matter if you boomerang from different places. We still need those skills. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So could you describe a typical day, Larry?
Yeah, in estates, the one thing that I like is we don't generally have a typical day. No 2 days are the same in estates. We're a very, very reactive service. So we have to react to major incidents going wrong all the time. And no matter how many plans we have for that day, sometimes things have to change. So I may come into work and there may be some power failures, loss of water, the ventilation systems aren't working, we've got fire alarms. So whatever we've got planned in my diary at the beginning of the day sometimes has to go out the window because we have to prioritize those emergencies. But also part of my role, I've got to plan the work for the team, what we're going to be doing for that week, that day, that month. We've got to ensure that the NHS is compliant with all maintenance requirements, because a lot of our equipment has a lot of rules and regulations around it of how we should maintain it and how it should be kept. We've got to ensure that we've got all the documentation in place if we're audited and things like that. So that's extremely important that we've got that backup documentation to back up the work that we've done. I've also got to monitor the performance of the team using key performance indicators and service level agreements. Now, service level agreements are basically every job that we get has a target, whether it's a dripping tap to a power failure. We have so many minutes or hours that we have to get to that job and attend that job and rectify that job. So it's part of my job to manage the performance of the team to ensure that we're meeting those requirements. People management is also part of my role, and that can be extremely challenging, dealing with people. That might be for absenteeism, things like that, doing appraisals for people. I'm also the budget holder for approximately £8 million budget in estates. So we've got to arrange the tenders for service contracts, etc. And we've got to be able to demonstrate that we are giving best value for the taxpayers' money, because it's everybody's money that the NHS is using. So we've got to demonstrate that that's being put to the best use.
There's really no typical day there at all, is there? I mean, it's just enormous. And
Yes.
I think, that's the purpose of today, is to illustrate to young people that there's just so much to these kind of roles in estates. It's just fabulous. So if you could speak to a student, and I could probably add to this, you know, we are very keen to make sure that this kind of a role is open to all people from all different walks of life, to girls as much as it is to boys. Is there any kind of advice that you can give to students now who are thinking about your work or interested in your line of work?
Yeah, if they're interested in working in estates and facilities, or specifically estates, it's do some research into what part of construction or building services you'd like to go into, whether that be a craft apprenticeship route, mechanical or electrical side of things, design, architecture, project management. There's lots of different routes within estates to work in. And also, you know, nobody's afraid in the NHS of moving around from department to department to gain more skills. You know, it's something that is welcomed. And one of the NHS is one of the very few organisations where, you know, my director of works, my director of estates started as an apprentice at 16. And he's a senior director now, you know, and there's not that many organisations where you can still do that, you know, and it's something that I'm a great believer in. You know, is promoting people right through the system from you know, for young trainee right through. And as a manager who interviews and recruits, you know, I'm looking for. No, I'm not looking for somebody that knows everything, because what we do is very complicated engineering scenarios, and we're not expecting to find people who know and have all those skills. What we are looking for is people with transferable skills and the ability to learn new skills. So that's what we're looking for.
Advice. Really good advice. And yeah, I would echo that, you know, that there is that leadership there, those roles there, because we are so big in the NHS. You know, it's such a good way to work your way up, really. I would concur with that. But yeah, really top tips there. Thank you. So if you think about the best bit of your job, Larry, and the worst bit, could you say that in a nutshell?
So probably the best parts of my job is I love the challenge of problem solving, the adrenaline rush we get when things are going wrong and not going too well. You know, we have to respond. You imagine that there is a patient in theatre in the middle of an operation and we lose power or we lose lighting, things like that. We have to react instantly, you know, to ensure patient safety. So I love that adrenaline rush that we get and the sense of accomplishment when we repair something like that. The job is always different. It's never boring, and we get a real sense of achievement that we're actually part of a very, very large machine that the NHS is, and it can't operate at all because most people only ever see the A&E, the doctors, the nurses, everything, but we're such a massive machine that operates behind the scenes to keep everything running and all departments functioning and wards operating, and nobody could do it without estates and facilities, catering. Everybody plays a part, right down to the cleaners, porters. You know, it's all one massive team, and that's one of the good things about working at the trust is everybody does work as a team. Now, the least favourite part of my role, I would say, is being on call. So we have to provide in estates facilities a 24-hour service, and we have to be available on an on-call rota if something serious goes wrong. So I participate on that rota every 6 weeks, and I dread getting that call at 3 o'clock in the morning to say something's wrong, because nobody ever rings me at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me everything's fine. It's usually we've got something major going wrong. So that's the least thing I enjoy in my job.
Yeah, it's never a nice moment that when it's an unexpected one as well in the middle of the night.
Definitely.
I guess I think I'm going to sneak another question in, but I'm going to ask you now, maybe come back to it, because I know that there'll be young people watching this, and I think one of the growth areas is around kind of greener skills that we're looking for in some of our staff. Do you have any sustainability element in your role, or is that part of anything in your department? We'll come back to that in a minute, but I think I'd really like to touch on that today. And it's a real big surprise. I know, but I just think it's really important to get across to the young people on this who may be watching that it is still it is quite a big part of what we do. And a growing part really of what we do. Yeah. So just coming back to the last question before that is about some of the skills and the knowledge that you actually think that are relevant in schools that you've taken with you.
So things I learned in
today?
school, that are still relevant to my job today is communication skills, being able to talk to people, deal with people at all different levels, public, staff, etc. Knowing the structure of an organization, knowing the structure, who does what, who do you go to ask to for advice? It's like you are when you're at school, it's a massive building with lots of different people working in it. Team working, and that's something I learned at school a lot, and certainly in the NHS, it's very much fundamental for us to operate and work as a team. And finally, what I would say is never be afraid of asking for help and support. Nobody knows everything, none of us do, and we're always asking each other for help or speaking to the right people, and it's just knowing who those people are.
It's such good advice. It is such good advice, and all those skills are so crucial, especially in those crisis moments that you described. So yeah, I don't know if Tim wants to come in on just that last bit around some of the sustainability roles that we've got and our ambition as a healthcare and as an estates team to reduce our carbon, with our energy and boilers and all the rest of it. I just wanted to just touch on that before we finish.
Yeah. It's worth saying that, obviously the NHS are one of the biggest users of carbon currently. And obviously we have a lot of buildings, a lot of old infrastructure that's not very efficient. And we have to keep hospitals heated 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and cooled in the summer. So we've been set quite strict targets in the last couple of years to reduce our carbon footprint and to try and move away from oil burning generators. Steam is a lot of the departments within the NHS are still heavily reliant on steam. Now, steam is a very old-fashioned technology that isn't used very much in industry now, but the NHS is still very much reliant on it for decontamination and things like that. So we have to come up with innovative ways of being able to maintain the needs of the service, but doing it much more efficiently by using solar panels, that kind of thing, So we're definitely moving towards that. And we have got within estates and facilities, we've got energy managers, sustainability managers as well. So we've got those kind of roles within estates as well, where people can go into if they want to.
Thank you so much for just touching on that at the end. I just think it's such a key thing for young people and for us all. Just wanted to mention that on this call. That's it from me. I don't know if there's any other comments. Thank you so much. Sarah, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you so much, guys. That was brilliant. Everyone on the call, please pop your questions in that chat box, either the Everyone tab or directly to one of us, and we'll get them asked. You've got about 12 minutes left while I do my wrap up to ask anything that's on your mind. So I will now do the attempting to share screen. Hopefully work out okay. Fab. So in terms of next steps, obviously you've attended the webinar today. That's brilliant, but we don't end the support here. This will be available on the YouTube channel. Also on the YouTube channel for the City Region Careers Hub, you can watch back every webinar we've done in this series. And that is up to about 15 now. So any area of the NHS you're interested in, whether it's because it's a direct interest of yours or because you would like a bit more understanding of how you might work with it and that you're interested in, that is all there ready for you to view at your leisure. You'll have your follow-up email from myself. That's got the link to your post-work roadmap. This is something Leslie Ann's put together to give you a chance to kind of reflect a little bit on the webinar, what you've learned, any questions you might still have, whether you think it's a really good fit for you, whether it's made you think about something differently, any questions that you need to go and look into a little bit further. That sort of reflection is really useful for any kind of healthcare course or career. So getting into the habit of doing it is really beneficial at this early stage. In your follow-up email, you've also got a link to an evaluation. It should take less than 5 minutes. And we would really value some feedback on what you enjoyed about today, what you would have liked it to include, so that next year we can make sure we take all your feedback into account. At the bottom of your evaluation, you've got the option to select for a one-to-one follow-up. That'll be with the relevant UniConnect partnership in your region. So if you're in Merseyside, that is going to be me. If you're in another area of the Northwest, we'll put you in touch with a relevant person. And that is a chance for you specifically to think about what you've learned in relation to you, your next steps, where you're up to now, any barriers you think you might face, anything you think you need help with. So please do take that up if it would be of interest to you. We're really happy to provide that support. The eval will be open for about a week and a half, so you've got a little bit of time to think about whether you would like that follow-up. You've also obviously got all of our emails via the Google Classroom. If you want to pop any questions over there in that way instead of via a one-to-one. So Google Classroom, you should have all seen this because you've had your invitation link. This is essentially an online repository of everything that's been covered in any of these webinars, any useful events, resources, ways that you can get additional support. It's really, really good. So please do take advantage of it while it is available to you. And finally, we have got one more webinar left. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to do our final webinar of this year's series focused on healthcare science. So if you are interested in that, or you'd like to find out more, please do sign up. You can do that, again, you've got the link in your follow-up email, but you can do that via this page, which should be familiar to you because this is how you signed up for today. If you've got any questions, myself and my colleague Abby can help. You get signed up for that one. And that is pretty much everything from me. Just check the chat to see if we've got any last questions. Not at the moment, so I think we can officially call that quits and let you head out to enjoy what is left of this really nice evening, although it's a bit cloudy where I am now. Thank you so much for attending, guys. Have a lovely evening.